with all of the stuff that is going on with black men in particular, with all of these sexual assault claims popping up or old allegations popping up that many of us already knew about, with R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, Morgan Freeman, Anthony Anderson, and a host of other black men, especially over the last year or so, I said to myself, there has to be a reason for all of this. Like, this cannot be just a mere coincidence. I mean, we're pulling out everything that we can, and for some reason, it seems like there's a piece of the puzzle that is missing. And you know what? I don't want to sound like I'm the one who made this ultimate discovery, but I think I might have found that missing piece. Now, many of you do not know who this person in the image is, but if y'all remember when I did my White History Month on my original channel back in 2017, this person came towards the end of my White History Month series that I did. This man's name is D.W. Griffith. He is the one who is responsible for making one of the most propaganda-filled films of all time. That film being called Birth of a Nation. Not to be confused with the one Nate Parker did back in 2016. Now, see, I think that was another reason why they went after Nate Parker. Because, see, the original Birth of a Nation was hailed as one of the most iconic movies of all times, and is also hailed as the first motion picture to ever be created in America. And the powers that be, did not want this film, that particular version of the film, to be overshadowed by Nate Parker's version. Nate Parker's version, he named it that because he wanted it to overshadow that. In so many words, he wanted it to be a replacement or a response to that version of it. And I believe the powers that be didn't like it. And I think that's one other reason why the attack dogs were sent after Nate Parker. It wasn't just merely the fact of him being with a white woman after he got acquitted for sexually assaulting or raping a white woman when he was in college. So I think that also played a part as well. And I think it was some whispers about that too, but it kind of went silent. But I won't be surprised if that was the reason. But anyway, back to D.W. Griffith. He created one of the most propaganda-filled films of all time, where this was talking about how black men were these hypersexualized beings. They went around raping white women. It was even a scene in the movie. I didn't watch the movie. I just saw a clip of it. If you watch the movie 13th, they actually talked about this movie at the beginning of the documentary. And there was a scene where the white woman was being chased by a quote unquote black man. Now, let's be real here. Back then, black actors were not allowed to be in those movies. So what they did is they got white actors to do blackface. That was back when blackface really started to emerge on a more popular mainstream scale. And it was a part where a quote unquote black man was chasing after a white woman, and she got so scared of this black man trying to rape or sexually assault her that she actually jumped to her death. Like, she leaped off a cliff and she died. And then that's when they said that they pretty much made a crusade to go after. And that's pretty much what the movie was about. About black men supposed to be these hypersexualized beings going around trying to rape white women, and that the white man was going to come in and save the day. And guess what the white men had on? Klan's robes. So basically, this was their way of propelling white men to be the heroes of the movie while also praising the Klan at the same time. So this movie pushed the stereotype that black men were rapists, white women were these damsels in distress, and that white men were the heroes of the white saviors. So now you see why a lot of movies have that white savior complex. A lot of them pull from this film. Like, this film doesn't just reinforce the stereotype of black men being rapists or sexual assault people who do crazy things like that to get their shit off, but it also pushes the stereotype that if you want someone to save you, let it be that white man to do it. They don't even have to look good. They just could be the average person, just as long as they're white, and they're going to come in and save the day. Now, remember, I think it was also some part in the movie where they had to put the quote unquote black man on trial, and they immediately sentenced him to death. And that was hailed as one of the greatest movies of all time, and it still is to this day. Believe it or not, it was shown at the White House. I forget what president was in during that time. I want to think it was Woodrow Wilson. I could be wrong. And it was actually premiered at the White House. It's like one of the only movies to do that. And it got high esteem, praise. It's still, even like I said, to this day in 2019, it's still hailed as one of the best movies ever made. Crazy to believe and shocking as that is, from a movie that was made back in 1915 and pushed a heavy propaganda-filled stereotypes about black men in particular. Now you fast forward to all the way today and see how all of this stuff is starting to play out. That black men are what? These hypersexualized beings. They can't control their sexual urges. They just have to get it from wherever they get it. But the difference is now you have other white men mixed up in there, even though it's proven out throughout history that white men are just as, if not even more, hypersexualized beings, always trying to rape someone or sexually assault someone, no matter what the age. I mean, look at Christopher Columbus and his crew. They came all the way over from another country and raped and pillaged and murdered an entire nation of people and brought their population down damn near well over 60%. Like, they started off with maybe 10 million people, and by the time Christopher Columbus and his crew were done, there was only about 2 million people left, if that. Got all those little girls pregnant, and they either gave birth or they killed themselves because they didn't want to deal with the pain of giving birth or wanted to live that kind of life. And I don't have to go through the transatlantic slave trade. We already know that. That's 400 years right there. Now, what I'm talking about happened before D.W. Griffith made that movie. And look at what the stuff that's playing out now in 2019. Years, we're talking about over 100 years, 104 years after this movie came out. And see how it's all connecting. D.W. Griffith's movie is definitely one of the sources to a lot of the things that's playing out today when it comes to a stereotype behind black men being pushed into the spotlight as far as sexual assault and rape, and in some cases child molestation goes. Because it's no coincidence that this R. Kelly thing came back up. We already knew about it. Everybody in the black community, for the most part, who's been alive for the last 30 years knows about this, and they're bringing it back up. And R. Kelly is not going to be the last one. They're going to find another high-profile black person to go after because they really want to push this angle that black men are these beings that need to be stayed away from. And like I said plenty of times before, R. Kelly is a proxy. And I said black people in 2019 need to learn the definition of that word. Point blank, period. I also said black people in 2019, if they don't know, they need to look up Lee Atwater. As racist as he was, he, in my opinion, definitely defines what code speak is. That's why whenever I mention the word code speak, I always say Lee Atwater taught us. That's why I say that. They say a broke clock is right twice a day. But when he got exposed for what he said, that was his time of being a broke clock. But that's really all I wanted to say as it pertains to this. I would not recommend that you watch Birth of a Nation. Well, his version of it, because one, it's too damn long, and two, it's too propaganda filled to even get past the first 5 minutes of it. Like, I tried to watch the movie. I didn't get past maybe 3 minutes. Already 3 minutes and I was already done with it already. I don't know how anybody could have sat there and watched that entire long movie, but apparently people did. But I just basically gave you a synopsis of what the movie is anyway. Like, if you was to go look up the synopsis right now, it'll probably say somewhere along the same lines, but it may not go into that much depth as I did. But y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. The links will be in the description. I will talk to you in the next one.